Ellen Greenberg. Life before the tragedy. Ellen Ray Greenberg was born on June 23, 1983, to Joshua and Sandy Greenberg. Raised in a supportive family, she grew up with values of hard work, dedication, and care for others. Her path reflected those qualities as she pursued higher education and eventually entered a career devoted to teaching. Ellen attended Pennsylvania State University, where she earned a degree in communications. After completing her undergraduate studies, she pursued additional training to qualify as an educator. She studied at Temple University and later at Chestnut Hill College, focusing on programs that prepared her for classroom instruction. By the time of her death, Ellen had established herself as a first-grade teacher at Uniata Park Academy in Philadelphia. Colleagues and parents regarded her as committed and compassionate, someone who took pride in shaping the early educational experiences of her students. Teaching young children was not simply an occupation, but a reflection of her personality, which valued patience, kindness, and guidance. Ellen lived in the Manayunk neighborhood, a lively section of Philadelphia known for its hills, row houses, and close-knit community atmosphere. She shared an apartment with her fiancé, Samuel Sam Goldberg. Their engagement had taken place not long before January 2011, and both families were preparing for an upcoming wedding. Friends described the couple as busy with plans and excited about the next stage of their lives together. This period of Ellen's life reflected stability and optimism. She had completed her studies, secured a teaching position, and was looking ahead to marriage. The details of her personal and professional journey portray an ordinary yet hopeful trajectory, cut short by circumstances that remain the subject of profound dispute. January 26, 2011. The day of the incident in January 26, 2011, Philadelphia, was blanketed by a powerful blizzard. The heavy snowfall forced schools across the city to dismiss students and staff early. Ellen Greenberg, working as a first-grade teacher, left her classroom and returned to the apartment she shared with her fiancé, Samuel Sam Goldberg, in the Manayunk neighborhood. The afternoon unfolded quietly, with weather conditions keeping most residents indoors. Around 4:45 p.m., Sam left the apartment to use the complex's gym. His workout lasted less than 2 hours, and by the early evening he returned. When he attempted to enter, he discovered the swing bar latch secured from the inside, preventing access. Sam called and texted Ellen several times, but she did not respond. After repeated attempts, he forced the door open and entered. What he found would define the case from that moment forward. Inside the kitchen, at approximately 6:40 p.m., Ellen's body was discovered. She had sustained 20 stab wounds. 10 of those injuries were concentrated in her back and neck, while others were located on her chest and abdomen. The kitchen knife, believed to have caused the injuries, remained lodged in her chest when Sam entered. Alongside these wounds, bruises in varying stages of healing were later documented on her body, though their significance remains disputed. Sam immediately called 911. In his call, he stated that Ellen had stabbed herself and, at another moment, that she had fell on a knife. His words, recorded during those frantic minutes, became part of the case record and have been examined repeatedly by investigators, analysts, and the public. The timeline of January 26th, from the early school dismissal to Ellen's discovery in her apartment, provides the foundational sequence of events. These details became the starting point for the official investigation, one that would soon generate controversy, conflict, and enduring questions. Initial investigation and conflicting rulings. When Ellen Greenberg's body was discovered, investigators arrived to examine the apartment. At first glance, the scene was treated as a potential suicide. The locked swing bar on the door, combined with the absence of obvious signs of forced entry, influenced this early interpretation. The possibility of homicide was not dismissed outright, but the framing of suicide shaped much of the initial response. Following protocol, Ellen's body was taken for autopsy. The medical examiner's office conducted the examination and initially ruled her death a homicide. The presence of 20 stab wounds, including 10 to her back and neck, appeared inconsistent with self-infliction. This conclusion stood in contrast to the language used by the Philadelphia Police Department, which described the death as only suspicious. Rather than embracing the homicide classification, police emphasized uncertainty, leaving space for an alternative ruling. Within weeks, the medical examiner's office unexpectedly reversed its position, changing the official cause of death from homicide to suicide. The dramatic shift deepened confusion, raising questions about the pressures or reasoning behind the change. As this ruling took hold, the clarity surrounding Ellen's case diminished. The integrity of the crime scene also became a point of contention. The apartment was cleaned and sanitized the day after her death, an action permitted by police. Potential evidence was removed in the process, erasing details that might have provided greater certainty. Further complicating matters, Samuel Goldberg's uncle, Judge James Schwartzman, entered the apartment before investigators returned with a warrant. He removed electronics and personal belongings, altering what remained accessible to authorities. These procedural irregularities, conflicting rulings, compromised evidence, and disputed investigative steps laid the foundation for the long-standing controversy over Ellen Greenberg's true manner of death. The autopsy findings in detailed autopsy on Ellen Greenberg revealed findings that would fuel debate for years to come. The medical examiner documented a total of 20 stab wounds on her body. 10 of these were located on her back and neck, areas difficult to reconcile with self-inflicted injuries. The remaining wounds were distributed across her chest, abdomen, and other regions, including the fatal injury in which the knife remained embedded in her chest when she was found. In addition to the stab wounds, the report noted bruising across multiple parts of Ellen's body. These bruises were in varying stages of healing, suggesting they were not sustained at the same time. Some appeared recent, while others showed signs of older trauma. The presence of these marks raised questions about their origin and whether they pointed to a pattern of prior injury. Toxicology testing was also conducted. The results indicated that Ellen had consumed prescribed medications commonly used for anxiety and depression. The levels detected were within therapeutic ranges, not considered lethal or incapacitating. These findings became part of the broader discussion about her mental health, though they did not provide clarity on the violent manner of her death. Despite the extensive injuries, there were no defensive wounds identified on Ellen's hands or arms. This absence added further complexity to the interpretation. For some, it suggested she had not been in a struggle. For others, it reinforced the belief that the death scene required more scrutiny before labeling it suicide. Ultimately, the autopsy findings painted a picture of contradictions, numerous deep wounds, unexplained bruises, and a lack of struggle indicators. Rather than resolving questions, the results deepened the divide over whether Ellen Greenberg's death was a violent homicide or an improbable act of self-harm. Investigative disputes and expert opinions. As the case unfolded, sharp disputes emerged between investigative bodies and independent experts. The Philadelphia Police Department maintained that Ellen Greenberg's death was consistent with suicide, relying heavily on the locked apartment door and absence of signs of forced entry. Their stance emphasized procedural elements of the scene, rather than the improbability of the injuries themselves. The medical examiner's office, however, had originally ruled Ellen's death a homicide. This determination was based on the number and location of her wounds, along with the suspicious bruising noted during autopsy. Yet under pressure and amid internal reviews, the ruling was later amended to suicide. That reversal became the center of controversy, raising questions about external influence, investigative oversight, and the reliability of the official record. Independent experts offered conflicting perspectives. Some forensic pathologists highlighted that multiple deep stab wounds, particularly those to the back and neck, were inconsistent with self-infliction. They also noted the absence of hesitation marks that are typically present in suicide by stabbing. Others, however, argued that psychological stressors combined with access to a knife might explain the circumstances, even if they appeared unusual. Legal specialists and outside consultants criticized the handling of evidence, the rapid cleaning of the crime scene, and removal of personal belongings before forensic re-examination drew condemnation. These irregularities suggested that critical information may have been lost. For many observers, the flawed investigative process itself became as significant as the physical evidence. The debate grew beyond technical findings into broader disputes over transparency and accountability, with law enforcement, medical authorities, and outside experts deeply divided. Ellen Greenberg's manner of death remained a flashpoint instead of resolution. The investigation's contradictions set the stage for years of legal challenges and public scrutiny. 6. Legal battles and public outcry following the disputed rulings. Ellen Greenberg's parents, Josh and Sandy, began a prolonged legal fight to challenge the conclusion of suicide. They argued that the evidence pointed to homicide and that investigative authorities had failed to conduct a thorough, unbiased review. Their persistence placed the case into public view, drawing support from advocacy groups and forensic professionals who questioned the integrity of the process. Civil litigation became central to their pursuit of answers through legal filings. The Greenbergs sought access to investigative records, autopsy photographs, and official communications. Their attorneys emphasized inconsistencies between the physical evidence and the official determination. Court documents highlighted the improbability of Ellen inflicting 10 stab wounds to her back and neck while also sustaining multiple additional injuries. Each filing underscored their belief that the case required independent re-examination. The legal process intersected with growing public attention. Media outlets reported extensively on the conflicting rulings, framing Ellen's case as emblematic of systemic flaws in death investigations. Public forums, online communities, and advocacy networks amplified the story, demanding accountability and transparency. As coverage intensified, the question of whether Ellen's death was suicide or homicide shifted from private tragedy to public controversy. Throughout this period, prosecutors and city officials resisted efforts to reopen the case. Legal motions to compel further investigation were met with procedural objections, delaying any substantive reconsideration. Despite these barriers, the Greenbergs' legal campaign kept the case active within the courts and the public. Ultimately, Section 6 captures how Ellen Greenberg's death extended beyond forensic debate into a broader legal and societal conflict. The family's fight against official conclusions, combined with growing public scrutiny, ensured the case remained unresolved and subject to continuing challenge. Ongoing debate and legacy debate surrounding Ellen Greenberg's death continues, years after the events of January 26, 2011. Despite multiple reviews, her manner of death remains officially classified as suicide, a determination that her family and many outside experts have consistently disputed. The central conflict lies in the unresolved contradictions between the physical evidence and the official findings, leaving the case suspended between competing interpretations. Forensic specialists, legal analysts, and medical professionals have publicly voiced doubts about the ruling. Many point to the sheer number and location of Ellen's wounds, arguing that they defy the characteristics typically associated with self-inflicted injuries. Others stress that procedural missteps, such as the compromised crime scene and premature removal of personal property, undermined confidence in the original investigation. Together, these criticisms sustain the argument that Ellen's death deserves reconsideration through independent NT-review. Public advocacy has also played a continuing role in keeping the case visible. Media outlets revisit the story regularly, framing it as an emblem of systemic shortcomings in forensic and investigative practices. Documentaries, podcasts, and detailed reports keep Ellen's name in circulation, ensuring that her case remains a subject of widespread discussion rather than fading into obscurity. For her parents, Josh and Sandy Greenberg, the case represents both personal tragedy and an enduring mission for accountability. Their efforts extend beyond Ellen's memory, highlighting broader questions about how death investigations are conducted and the standards by which conclusions are reached. Ultimately, Ellen Greenberg's legacy lies not only in the unanswered questions of her own case, but also in the broader awareness it has generated. The continuing debate ensures that her story resonates as a symbol of persistence, controversy, and the demand for truth in the face of official resistance.